She cheated and forged my name, so I made sure her next address was a prison cell. I was 22 and naive enough to think loyalty was a promise you could frame. Her name was Nina. Dimples, comet tail laughter, the kind of girl who could turn an apology into a compliment and make you thank her for it. We were a year into living together when the first bill arrived in a company I'd never heard of, for a credit card I didn't own. Probably a mix-up, she said, kissing my cheek. You know how banks are. I did know how banks are. I also knew the signature on the application was mine, except it wasn't. The loop on the G in my last name was too careful, like someone had practiced it in the mirror. Nina cried when I asked, said a friend must have done it as a prank, said she'd take care of it. For 3 months, packages I hadn't ordered showed up at our door. For 3 months, she swore she'd fix it. And for 3 months, she worked late with a coworker named Jace, who somehow owned a toothbrush that lived in our bathroom drawer. I didn't kick her out. I froze my credit, filed a dispute, and watched. The night I came home early and found her in our bed with him, I didn't shout. I didn't throw anything. I packed a bag, took photos of every forged statement, printed the email where she'd sent my signature to herself, and left my keys on the table. The last thing I said was, "You should have learned how I make the G." She laughed. "You can't prove anything." Maybe not that day. I moved into a studio and learned how to sleep in silence. I paid down the fraudulent debt to stop the bleed and kept the paper trail. I worked, I saved, I learned. Compliance law at night, audits on weekends, the boring stuff nobody posts about. While Nina posted vacations and hand hearts with Jace, I memorized the whistleblower statutes and the way money tries to hide. Years pass faster when you're busy. By 28, I was consulting for small non-profits, the kind that keep their books in Excel and their hopes on bake sale receipts. I loved those clients. They were honest. They were also prey. One morning, a director slid a stack of bank statements across my desk and said, "Something's off, and I don't know what." I scanned line items and stopped when I hit a vendor called N&J Community Solutions. Monthly invoices, round numbers, vague descriptions, program support, community outreach. The address was a UPS box. The signature on the contract was the treasurer. The treasurer's name made my stomach go cold. Nina K. New, last initial, same handwriting, same too careful G in the one place it appeared, mine, on a donor acknowledgement letter I had not written, authorizing restricted funds to be reallocated. She hadn't just cheated, she'd learned to monetize it. I didn't flip the table. I asked for the board minutes, vendor vetting forms, and the Form 990 drafts. I smiled and said, "Give me a week." I didn't build a trap, I built a mirror. I compiled every forged credit form from our past. I overlaid her N&J invoices on top of them and circled the identical spacing, the same habit of double spacing after periods, the way she wrote dates with a slash, not a dash. I requested purchasing emails by legal right, no hacks, no tricks. I mapped the money, from grant deposit to shell vendor to a personal account that rhymed with her new last name. It was all there. It always is, if you know what questions to ask. Then I called a number I never thought I'd need, the State Attorney General's Charity Fraud Hotline. I sent the packet, names redacted except for hers, dates, transfers, the UPS box, the bank account ending in 1037, my affidavit attached, sworn under penalty of perjury. They didn't kick down doors the next day. That's not how the world works. They called back 2 weeks later for clarification. They asked me not to contact the suspect. They asked me to keep quiet. So I smiled, and I waited again. Nina's life online kept glittering. New handbags, new trips. "So proud of our impact," she posted, with photos of her standing in front of a donation thermometer she'd quietly drained. The morning it happened, I was on site for a mundane budget meeting. 2 unremarkable sedans parked outside. 2 agents in gray suits asked for Ms. K. Nina breezed into the conference room like she was about to charm a discount out of reality. When they showed badges, she laughed and straightened her blazer. When they asked to see the books, she told them to make an appointment. When they showed her the warrant, she went still in that particular way, only the guilty know, like a deer who hasn't decided whether the headlights are mercy. They opened her office safe and found cash deposits that matched withdrawals from the nonprofit's account within 12 hours. They pulled her desktop and mirrored her phone. In a folder named Annual, they found a cut and paste of my old driver's license signature, a relic she'd kept like a trophy, and repurposed for thank you letters sent to donors whose money never reached a single child. She tried to blame Jace. She tried to blame me. She said I had a vendetta. One agent looked at the stack of bank transfers and said flatly, "Ma'am, the money left on Tuesday at 9:18 a.m. from your login on your office IP. The camera above your desk is timestamped." They walked her out past a bulletin board covered in crayon drawings. She wasn't handcuffed yet. That would come after processing. She wasn't crying yet. That would come when bail was denied. I didn't attend the trial. I read the transcripts. The charges weren't sexy. Charitable solicitation fraud, identity theft, wire fraud. The sentencing wasn't a movie crescendo. 3 years state, restitution ordered, 10 years barred from serving on any nonprofit board. But when the judge said, "You traded on trust you didn't deserve," I closed my eyes and exhaled a breath I'd been holding since the first forged bill hit my mailbox. People asked me later if I felt bad, if turning in someone I once loved felt like overkill. I tell them I didn't turn her in for cheating. I turned her in for stealing food off plates she posed in front of, for teaching a small charity to doubt its own goodness, for daring to forge my name and then use it to rob the very word donor of meaning. After sentencing, I walked past the UPS store with the box she'd used. The clerk was taping cartons shut. "You need a label?" he asked. "No," I said, smiling. "Already sent." I kept every promise I ever made to myself that year. I helped the nonprofit rebuild with real controls and a new treasurer who knows how to say no. I taught workshops on fraud red flags for free. I slept, finally, through the night. Nina thought she got away with everything. Me, the bills, the lie that you can print someone else's name and make it your passport. She thought time would bleach it all clean. Time doesn't clean anything. It just gives you space to line up the truth. How far did I go? Exactly as far as the law would take me. No further, no less. And when the cell door shut, it sounded less like revenge and more like a ledger snapping closed, balanced, at last.